I'm Ryan. I'm a science teacher.
I'm Cheryl, and I slept through science.
Each episode will tackle a science question you may have learned in school, but can't quite remember or fully explain.
And I'll take the risk of asking the dumb questions so that we can all understand the science we slept through.
The bell has rung. Let's get started. Welcome to lesson 44. We are in our holiday unit. Cheryl, are you enjoying celebrating the holidays?
Oh my gosh, I love this time of year so much. So fun. And it's been fun talking about them in these lessons as well.
Yes, it has. Well, we're in the month of November, which means what holiday are we looking towards?
Christmas, according to Target and all of the stores, right?
Well, according to Target and all the
Yeah.
stores, we've been looking towards Christmas since what, September?
Yeah. No, it's Thanksgiving really soon.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. Last week we talked about a Thanksgiving thing, brining the turkey. What do you want to talk about this week?
Well, you know I love food. I don't know how much our
do know you
listeners
love food.
know that I love food, but I love food a whole lot. So these ones are
I
really
feel like that's
gonna
an
be.
understatement,
Yeah.
Cheryl.
I love food. How about
There
that?
you go. That's much better.
So, and obviously with Thanksgiving, it's very food focused. So I have another
Yes.
food question for
Okay.
you today. Two things that my family, and I think probably a lot of people, eat at Thanksgiving time. Well, a lot of people have cranberry sauce. And if you
Okay.
do, as a kid, and honestly, still today, I love the canned ones. Like my mom makes this really lovely homemade one with like orange zest in it and everything. But then
Ooh.
honestly, also just the canned cranberry sauce is so good. And then something that my family makes a lot is a cherry cola Jell-O. Now, I've told you about it before, and you've given me that face before because you hate cherry. So just ignore the cherry part of it. Just
Okay.
think about like a fun soda flavored Jell-O where you
Okay.
use soda instead of water. It's really fun. I know
Because
it's
it's
hard.
bubbly?
Well, if you add it in cold, it's bubbly, but if you do it instead of the hot water, then it's not. So it just depends
So you
on if
heat
you
it
want.
up and then you add it?
Well, yeah, because when you make Jell-O, if you do you do the hot water first, and then you add in
Yep.
the cold water. So you can do like the cola instead of the hot water, and then you can do like the cherry juice instead of the cold water, and then you put in cherries as well and use the black cherry Jell-O. I know it's hard for you to imagine because of your hatred of cherries. You would hate it.
Loathing.
Yes, sure. Yeah. But anyway, it's a really
Yeah.
fun dish that my aunt made, and
Okay.
she
Family
passed.
tradition. You can
Yeah.
have that.
Yeah, she passed away a number of years ago, and
Mhm.
it's a fun way that we remember her. It was really creative too. Like
Yeah.
I've never heard of it
Yeah.
before. So anyway, there's all these like gelatinous things on our table
Okay.
between the cranberry sauce and the Jell-O.
Uh-huh.
You know, there's just like these things that are a unique texture, and I got to thinking,
Sure.
what like how does gelatin work? Why does it changes texture
Mm-hmm.
when it's like, but if it has to be just right as well. Like those are
Okay.
recipes that when you make them even, you have to get the balance right to get this like Jell-O. And you can do the Jell-O jiggler or the Jell-O, but either way, it becomes this like weird substance that holds together in a unique way.
Okay.
And how does that happen?
Okay. How does Jell-O / gelatin
Yeah.
hold together?
Yeah, like how does it do that texture?
Okay, the texture. Well,
Mhm.
let's start in our pre-assessment with digging in a little bit to something that you said previously. You said there has to be the right mixture. What does it need to be the right mixture of?
Water or liquid to the gelatin has to be the right ratio in order for it to get that like correct um substance. I'm trying to think of the right word
Yeah.
for
And
it.
so what happens if the ratio isn't correct?
Well, like if it's too much water, then it never forms. Like it never forms
Okay.
into that Jell-O hold that it has. And
Uh-huh.
then I do know, like, if you're making the jigglers, you're actually supposed to do even less water so that you can pick it up and hold it. Or if
Okay.
you've ever, like, had Jell-O jigglers
Yeah, I
before.
didn't realize that they were a different recipe.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you
Okay.
actually need even less water. You still have to follow that recipe, though.
Okay.
So something scientific is happening because this is
Mhm.
different than how much rosemary do I put on my chicken. There's something different
Right.
here.
Okay. What and when you say it's different, what do you think, even though you don't know what the actual thing is,
Yeah.
what, like, categorically do you feel like is different about this versus rosemary? I like that example.
This is like a chemical process,
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
This isn't just a flavor preference, which like a lot of cooking, I don't know, just put in the amount you want, you know? And
Sure.
then I feel like this is more of the baking category, which is
Mm,
like it actually matters because there's actually a change in the substance that's happening and it's not going to be successful unless you do it correctly.
okay. So do you think that the gelatin is turning into something else, or do you think that the gelatin is reacting with other things? What do you think might be happening there?
Well, I think it's probably just like dehydrated something or other because I
Okay.
know that gelatin comes from animals. I've heard a
Okay.
lot of comments through just like living in the world that it's something about horses' hooves, but I don't know if
Okay.
that's true or not. But even when I make chicken stock, it becomes like gelatin. And
Okay.
so there's something, so I don't know if it's from the bones or what it is from exactly, but I know there's something related to animals that is like what makes the gelatin gelatin.
Okay.
And so I'm assuming it's something dehydrated when you're like buying a packet of
Mhm.
it. And so I think it's going back to closer to its original form. Once you're adding
Okay.
the water, you're like
Yeah.
rehydrating it,
Okay.
and then it's going to hold if it's that correct
Okay. I've got one more
balance.
question, and it may or may not actually relate. It might just be an I'm curious sort of a thing.
Okay.
When you talk about buying it, because other than making Jell-O, I've never made anything with gelatin.
Yeah.
What form, when you buy it, is it? Is it a powder like Jell-O, or do you buy it as something else?
I've never bought plain gelatin, but I
Okay.
think it's a powder. I
Okay.
know I've seen recipes for like make your own gummy bears at home or different things like that where you have
Uh-huh.
to buy plain gelatin in order to do that.
Yep.
I'm
The other reason
fairly
I'm
certain it's a
asking is
powder.
because as much as I don't actually like to cook myself, I love the Great British Baking Show,
Okay. Okay.
and they will use gelatin at
Oh.
times, and they come in these clear sheets that they then,
Oh,
like, put in a bowl of water. And I wasn't sure if you knew anything about that or not.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
That's exciting though. I still have never watched that show and I know I would love it.
How have you never watched that show? That
Yeah,
has
that's the
nothing to do with
reaction
this
I get
podcast, but oh my
constantly.
gosh, Cheryl, it's so delightful.
I know. I know I'll like it. I still just haven't watched it, but yeah.
Okay. Someday when you decide you're ready,
Is that
there's
my homework?
there you go. That's your homework. Watch an episode of the Great British Baking Show.
Okay, that sounds great.
In order to talk about gelatin and how it works, we are going to have to do a little bit of chemistry,
All right.
which you kind of alluded to already. You thought that there was maybe some sort of chemical something happening, and you are correct. There is some sort of chemical something.
Woohoo.
We're also going to have to bring in a little bit of biology. So this is really going to be biochemistry.
Whoa, that sounds
Ooh,
advanced.
it is advanced. You're
Okay.
advanced now, Cheryl.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm not sure about that yet, but,
Well,
maybe someday.
someday. Okay. Like you said, gelatin does come from animal products.
Okay.
And you had mentioned horses' hooves.
Yeah.
which technically it can come from there, but really gelatin comes from collagen that has broken down.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
What do you know
Yeah.
about collagen?
Well, I know that it's a supplement that people like to take these days and that it helps they say it helps like your skin have a bounce to it
Hmm.
or things like that. So I could see it. And then I know that well, I think it's in the bones, next to the
It
bones.
is in the bones. Yes,
Okay. I was thinking about that too when I make stock that I thought it
exactly.
was in the bones. Okay.
Yes,
Got it.
and that you made that connection, and that's true.
Mhm.
When you make stock, because you're boiling those bones for so long, and there's other things usually around it as well, it allows that collagen to come out of the bones and other connective tissue that may be left over, which is why sometimes if you cool it down, it actually does sort of solidify or gel, is
Yeah.
because you actually extracted the collagen. What happens is collagen is actually, it's a protein and it has three parts that are all wrapped around each other. And then when you heat it up, those three separate parts separate out. And when it's just one of them, that's what is gelatin. And then when the gelatin cools again, it actually forms what they call a matrix, which is this, it kind of interconnects in all of these different ways. And it connects to itself. And then when it's in the form of gelatin instead of collagen, and this is where the actual chemistry sort of comes in. And I'm not going to give you all of the details here, but I am going to tell you what it does is it's able to form hydrogen bonds.
I've heard of that.
Yes. If you remember, we've talked about our good friend, the water molecule,
Yeah.
right? Where you've got the oxygen and then the two hydrogens.
Yeah.
And the way, and someday we may talk about this, but the way that molecules form is that atoms either share or steal electrons from each other.
Okay.
And most of the time when we're dealing with molecules like water, it's usually that they're sharing electrons, but they don't always share equally. The
Hmm.
oxygen gets more of the electrons than the hydrogens do, more often.
Interesting.
And there's a whole lot of reasons why. But what that means is the oxygen side of the molecule is slightly more negative than the hydrogen side
Okay.
because electrons have a negative charge. And so if you've got more electrons more often around the
Mm,
hydrogen, it's a little bit more negative. And then there's a little bit more positive charge around the hydrogen atoms. And that allows things that to kind of stick to each other. So that's actually part of what leads to, we've talked about this before, when water, remember when it freezes, remember we talked about phase changes, and when
mhm.
it freezes, it actually forms this weird kind of lattice structure,
Yeah.
right, where it kind of snaps into shape. That's partly because of those the hydrogen bonds that it can make with itself, because the hydrogens are slightly positive and the oxygens are slightly negative, so they sort of attract each other a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Not enough to actually make a new substance, but they're kind of, they think of them almost like velcro, like a not a really strong velcro, but just like a decent velcro, so that if they get close enough they can stick to each other. That's basically what a hydrogen bond is. So water is really good at hydrogen bonds. And the outside of the gelatin proteins, when they're in that matrix, are
Mhm.
very attractive to things that can make hydrogen bonds. So the water can stick to those gelatin molecules. And the water sticks more easily when it's not moving as fast. And what causes the water molecules to move more slowly?
Making them cold.
Making them colder. And so when you heat things up, they're moving really fast. That's why it's still a liquid. But then as it cools, they're not moving as fast, which means that that very slight attraction is actually able to help the water stick to the gelatin. And that's why it solidifies. I put that in quotes because it's obviously it's a gel, which I don't know if that counts as a solid or not, but
Yeah.
that's why it actually sets as a gelatin.
That's really cool.
I mean, I think so.
Wow. I really hope people are watching on YouTube too because your little like finger visuals.
all my fingers and my
We're
hands and
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I talk with my hands anyway, and then of course, if I'm trying to illustrate something, you gotta use your hands there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's basically it. That's basically how it works, and that's also why it tends to uh, go back to a liquid form. Gelatin does around body temperature, which is also why when you put it in your mouth, it doesn't like immediately like
Oh.
melt, but it kind of it's not quite as solid anymore, and you're able to kind of it kind of starts to liquefy a little bit around your tongue. You can get more of the flavor, all of those
Yeah.
things. So that's sort of how it works. And then you can put it in all sorts of things, right? You can put it in obviously you can put it in cranberry sauce,
Mhm.
and you can put it in Jell-O. That is what Jell-O uses. There are
Mhm.
other things that have a similar effect. Obviously, if people are vegetarian or vegan, they tend to prefer not to have things that have gelatin in them because they're animal products.
Mhm.
And there are other things. Pectin, you may have heard of pectin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pectin is a plant product that does something similar, but it works differently. And so it doesn't work in quite the same way. And sometimes they'll use pectin in like jams or jellies, things like that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a similar sort of effect. And so there's other project auger, if you've ever heard of that, or there's some other things that you can use to kind of, if you don't want to use animal products, there are other alternatives. But gelatin is the easiest one, the go-to for most people most of the time.
That's really cool. Wow.
Now it's time for your quiz, Cheryl.
Okay, but I'm gonna watch the British baking show. So we're gonna do that.
That's your homework. This is your quiz.
Wait, there's
Quizzes
like
happen in class. Homework happens at home.
yikes. You're so happy about that too.
You're welcome. Alrighty, first question. And I said this quickly, so I don't know if you actually caught it or not. And it's okay if you didn't.
Okay.
What type of molecule is gelatin?
Oh boy, I don't know if I did catch that or not. I don't even know what my options are. Can I have a multiple
Yes,
choice?
that was my backup, was to give you a
Okay.
multiple choice.
Great.
In biology, there are 4 main categories of molecules:
Okay.
carbohydrates, lipids, which are fats, proteins, and nucleic acids.
Oh gosh. I'm gonna guess a protein.
Ding, 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 ding,
Oh
ding.
my
It's a
gosh. I was
protein.
just guessing because animals. So, you
Well,
know.
animals have all 4 of those.
Oh, okay, fine. Well, then I got lucky.
You did. But yes, it's a protein. It's a protein. All right. Second question. Where does gelatin come from?
Bones.
And
Well, it's one of the 3 things that are in it. But and hooves. Um,
okay. Do you remember
what's
the
the
name?
and?
I don't know what you mean by the 3 things. Which 3
Well,
things are you
you said
thinking
there's
of?
3 things and then they get separated
Mm-hmm.
and you boil them, and then gelatin is one of those 3.
Well, a single one, it's not that they're separate. It's there are
Oh.
3 of the same type of molecule that are all connected to each other. And it starts with a C when they're all connected.
Collagen.
There you go. And when
Mhm.
they separate, each of them now we call gelatin.
Oh, okay.
Does
Got
that
it.
make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when you deal with proteins, there's, and I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but there are different layers of structure for protein. And one is called the quaternary structure, like 4, the 4th level. And that's the 3-dimensional structure that it relates with other proteins or other molecules
Mm.
of protein. And so that with collagen, it has a 3D shape where it's connected with another one, or
Okay.
another 2 in that case. Okay,
Cool.
last quiz question. What causes gelatin to solidify?
Well, um it and the water form a hydrogen bond,
Okay.
and that makes it want to be in that structure, and it the little water molecules
I love that you're doing hand motions now too.
Yeah. They both are inclined to do that, and then they do it together.
They do what?
Solidify, and they like the little water molecules and the little Jell-O guys, also molecules, that based on their structure, they like to get in that shape together. And cold also helps
Because
because then the molecules are moving at a much slower rate and they're more inclined to be in that solid form than if they're bouncing all over the place in the heat.
yes, I would only add that being in the solid form is really just that those hydrogen bonds are where the water molecules stick to the gelatin proteins. So they're kind of
Okay.
like they're connected to it, and that's sort of that solid state, if you will.
Gotcha.
Is that they actually stick to each other, and then also that the gelatin molecules are in that matrix where they're all interconnected with each other.
Matrix. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Remember, I made all the fun
Yeah.
hand motions. That's your favorite, right?
Yes.
Well, we will leave you with that wonderful picture of my fingers all intertwined with each other. Why don't you go ahead and pack up and get ready for my closing remarks? You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at I Slept Through Science, or on Twitter at Slept Science.
If you have dumb science questions like I do, please send them to us. You can email us at isleptthroughscience@gmail.com, or you can even send us a voice memo and we'll play it on the podcast.
Please rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it, subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode, and share about our podcast on social media.
Thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.
Ah! The bell doesn't dismiss you. I dismiss you.